Now that you understand the zoning requirements for the type of childcare program you wish to operate, we'll look at issues having to do with building permits and obtaining a certificate of occupancy. If you plan to open a residential or group childcare program, you won't need to view this video. You can proceed to video number 3. Commercial childcare centers will need to obtain a certificate of occupancy. If you're not sure whether your facility will require this certificate, you can find more information at the Philadelphia Business Services website. You will need to make sure that any construction or renovation work is performed by a licensed contractor.
A certificate of occupancy is required whenever you change the occupancy classification of the building. Daycare occupancies are separated into 2 classifications. There's a Group E, which is the same as a school. That's for children that are over 2.5. Okay, if you have more than 5 children under the age of 2.5, you would be classified as an I-4. Requirements are much more stringent than the Group E educational, because the children are smaller, they can't follow directions. Main areas of concern are accessibility, sprinklers, and means of egress.
A means of egress is an unobstructed path to exit a building. Discharge refers to a way to get out and away from the building. There are additional requirements if you have more than 5 children under 2.5 on the premises.
Any daycare facility needs 2 exits if you have more than 10 children in that room. From the second floor, no matter how many children, you always need 2 means of egress in a Group E or a Group I-4. You could have 8 or 9 children in a room on the second floor and only have 1 door out of that room. But once you're out of that room, off the floor, you're going to need 2 ways out, no matter how many children are on that second floor. The exits off the second floor are required to be enclosed in fire-rated construction, and that exit must lead to a discharge directly to the outside. The I-4 classification for daycares often requires sprinklers, and in most cases, Group E's do not require to be sprinklered.
When a building is undergoing a complete change in occupancy, you will need to provide an accessible entrance. This may not be required if there are other tenants in the building. When making alterations, the maximum expenditure to provide an accessible route to the childcare and to the toilet rooms serving the childcare is capped at 20% of the total cost of alterations. If there are no alterations and the building is not undergoing a complete change in occupancy, there is no requirement to make any accessibility improvements. If the entire building is undergoing a change in occupancy, an accessible entrance is required even if no other alterations are proposed.
The accessible route throughout the first floor, accessible bathrooms and stuff like that, that only kicks in based on 20% of the cost of alterations. So if you had an existing daycare and you want to go in and make improvements to that daycare center, you would need a building permit. If you're moving walls, you're putting in windows, doors, you're dropping the ceiling, anything like that, that requires a building permit. You need to submit an application with 3 sets of plans. The plans do not need to be sealed by an architect or engineer unless you're doing over $20,000 worth of alterations. Applications and plans are submitted on the concourse level of the Municipal Services Building at 1401 JFK Boulevard, directly across from City Hall. So within 20 business days, you should receive a response from a plan examiner, either that your permit has been approved or that there's additional information that must be submitted in order to issue the permit. You can accelerate it. There is a premium fee that's charged for accelerated. If your plans are found to be non-compliant, you can appeal for a variance. If it's an accessibility issue that you're non-compliance, then you have to appeal, the appeal is made to the Accessibility Advisory Board in Harrisburg. Those appeal forms are available online. After you receive your building permit and you start doing your work, building inspectors will come out and inspect Usually they come out and inspect at the start of the project, at the start of construction, after you get your permit, but before you start work. They have their initial site inspection. And then they may come back once or twice during the course of construction to inspect as you go. When everything is done, the building inspector will be the one that actually gives you the certificate of occupancy.
Building codes are vital for keeping our children and staff safe in the event of a fire emergency and making our facilities accessible for all. And meeting these codes is the law. The City of Philadelphia wants to help you meet all the building code requirements and comply with the law. Visit these websites for more information and consult the guide for childcare providers. Don't hesitate to call the city's Office of Business Services with any questions you may have.